This is the beautiful backyard of the Jefferson family. Today they are having a family outing with a remarkably interesting theme. This weekend, they are discovering the beauty of their race and ethnic background and culture by reading and exploring the fantastic world of African American literature. African American literature consists of collections of non-fictional, fictional, dramatic, and poetic works written by and about African Americans. Each family has a unique take on some of their classic pieces of literature. Let's discover some of them now. Grandma Jefferson is currently sweeping up some hay off the ground of the field. She is a hardy woman who has seen a lot of historical events in her lifetime. She saw the March on Washington and the speech Martin Luther King gave to the country. She was also there to see the news of the sit-ins at Kat's Diner and the nationwide influence it had. She understands how important literature has been for African American culture. This is why she's gathered the entire family to tell them about the oral traditions of slaves past and how they used songs to tell stories to share to each other of their native lands and the hardships of being enslaved. She tells her family of the poem by the author Phyllis Wheatley on being brought to America, and how it shared an alternative view of slaves who saw the passage to America through the slave trade as a new opportunity brought by God. This poem was influential to many Africans who were brought to America who lived in fear of the new change of being ripped away from their homeland. This poem is a good example of how Christianity has helped many slaves to reject the notion that all people are unequal by race and accept that God sees people of all color and race as equals. This is the first of many literary pieces that demonstrates the fight to end racism. Let's move on to Grandfather Jefferson to hear about his favorite African American literature piece. Grandfather Jefferson is reading the newspaper and is a little concerned about the current state of the world. It reminds him of his experience with segregation and how the world has been ever evolving since his childhood. Back in his prime in Chicago, the world was not so accepting of his black skin, and there was a lot of controversy over the African American race and its value in America. This allows Grandfather to reminisce about how he coped with the bigotry and racism he has faced in his past. He remembers reading the works of well-known African American author Frederick Douglass, and how his life as a slave did not stop him from being an intellectual, self-aware, successful man who broke the concrete ceiling to publish his work for the world. As well as reading, he also sang the family a song that was considered a Negro spiritual. He sings the song Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, and the whole family is amazed at Grandfather's cadence as he sings. He feels strength and rejoices in the song's deeper meaning. The song has been a song of freedom and hope for many of those who were enslaved in America's past. That reminds me. Let's go see what their son Jeremiah has to say about his favorite piece of literature as well. Jeremiah is the father of Jeremy, Ann, and Gracie. He's fathered them with the help of his beautiful wife Susan. Throughout his life, his parents have explained the importance of African American literature to his culture and racial identity. Growing up, Jeremiah has been inspired by the many works of African American authors, but he would have to say his favorite of all time would have to be Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes was a major leading voice through the Harlem Renaissance and has inspired many to speak up and be proud of their heritage and racial identity through his many works of poems. Jeremiah's favorite poem is Let America Be America Again and I Too, because they remind him that as an African American man, he lives in a country that is supposed to be full of equality and freedom for all, but that does not meet up to the standard that is now today. His race and other racial minorities face a lot of discrimination and still do not have the equality promised to them many years ago. As a father of three, Jeremiah must be a strong figurehead for his kids and wife. He demonstrates this through his choice of literature, that the words spoken by these strong black men can still represent them in today's time. Speaking of family, let's meet his wife. Susie is a lawyer, a cook, and most of all, a dedicated mother to her children. She works hard to provide a substantial life for her family and has learned a lot of life lessons from her favorite literary author, Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou was a prominent voice during the Civil Rights era and continued to inspire many with her several works of poems, essays, autobiographies, plays, movies, and television shows. Susie's favorite piece is Angelou's poem, And I Still Rise. The poem really inspired her to continue fighting no matter her race, background, or gender. It showed that the hateful racism and bigotry she experienced will not define her success in life. This helped her and others define their race as something to be proud of and not to look away from. Susie will always have her family's back and will continue to fight for their rights happily. In her arms is her daughter Gracie. Gracie is only 3 years old, so she doesn't have much experience with reading or understanding the significance of African American literature. However, her mother does read her bedtime stories each night, and she has picked the book I Am Enough by Grace Byers. This story portrays a beautiful African American little girl and how she is enough no matter her physical features or current obstacles that she faces in her life. It talks about her ambitions and passions, and no matter what, that she is enough. Gracie loves the story and finds confidence through its message. She understands that she is a different race than some of her friends, but she knows that she is still worthy of a good life despite it. Gracie is content with her life, just like her brother and sister. Speaking of siblings, look under the tree. It's a sleeping sister, Anne. Anne is a 12-year-old avid reader. She has found a passion for the literary works of many African American authors. Her love for reading has introduced her to stories that solidify her parents' message of being proud of her heritage and physical features. The stories have shaped her understanding of the hardships that were faced in the past that have brought African Americans to where they are today. Her all-time favorite poem is To a Dark Girl by Gwendolyn Bennett. This poem encompasses the beautiful messages to girls of African descent that they are beautiful and deserve to live their lives like queens. When this poem was written, many African Americans were ridiculed, abused, and made into jokes because of their race. She finds that a lot of African American literature teaches her to embrace her heritage and to fight for racial injustices. The same can be said for our final member of the family. Let's go to Jeremy with his favorite piece. Jeremy is a 15-year-old basketball player. When he's not shooting hoops, you can find him jamming out to some of his favorite African American artists, like Childish Gambino, Kendrick Lamar, and Tupac. These artists have spread their messages of how the African American race is perceived and how there are major political injustices systematically rooted in America. His all-time favorite song is This Is America by Childish Gambino, more specifically the music video by Childish Gambino. In the video, there are many cryptic messages about America's past with racial discrepancies, and it portrays the messages of Black Lives Matter. It also demonstrates the repeated racial violence experienced by African Americans at the hands of mass shootings and police brutality. Jeremy knows that he is an African American man, and that others may look at him differently due to this. However, through the powerful messages from artists like Childish Gambino and Tupac, he knows that he can continue fighting for his life with will and determination that one day things will be better. Wow, all of that was incredible. Thanks for coming along. All of these stories shared by the Jeffersons today are symbolic of the hardships and triumphs African American artists have been through. The family knows that they are part of the solution to making Black Lives Matter to everyone and to stop systematic racism and injustices. You can be too by sharing the messages of these African American authors and poets and artists and all of the African American literature out there. African American literature has inspired many to make huge impacts on the life of other African Americans. So I wanted to thank you for joining them on this beautiful day.